Echo, Mychal, Darnell, Kiese, Kai, and Marlon. Written by Kiese Laymon, from his collection, How to Slowly Kill Yourself and Others in America. Read by me, Jordan Barclay, because Black Lives Matter. And personally, I don't feel comfortable saying the N-word, so whenever it comes up, I will be saying N slur instead of the actual word itself. Alright, with that said, let's dive in. Echo, Mychal, Darnell, Kiese, Kai, and Marlon. Peace, fam. I'm just waking up on the anniversary of Malcolm X's assassination, the birthday of Nina Simone, and I feel small. I'm not comparing my life's accomplishments to either of them. I've learned enough to stop making that mistake. But I still compare myself to who I think I should be by now, and the vision is incomplete. I'm 26 now, and for the first time I feel comfortable enough calling myself a man, but can't help thinking of all the years I was confused about what that meant. I got into an argument with my pops when I was 21. I can't remember what it was about, and he asked me, "Do you think you're a man now?" And through my whimpering I admitted, no. I was answering on his terms. I was still in school. I didn't have any real bills, or a job, a place of my own, man shit. And the longer I went without any of those things, the less I felt like I would ever become a man, with his eyes constantly on me, asking without saying, "When are you going to get it together?" Hell if I knew. I had this vague idea about being a writer because that's the only skill I had. Still is. But don't sleep on my cookie baking abilities. With no earthly idea of how to make that happen. The days I didn't have an appointment with my therapist, I spent in bed watching cable news and writing really horrible poetry. When I wasn't having a panic attack, I was thinking about the last panic attack and anticipating the next. All the while, the disappointment in my pops' eyes was palpable. He was wondering where he went wrong, and I was being crippled by the thought that I'd never be enough of a man to make him proud. I'm trying to pinpoint the moment I stopped worrying and started living. I can't really. I still worry, but it doesn't overwhelm me. Something broke along the way, and I'm free. I can call myself a man now because I love and feel loved. And for me, that's all it takes. I think of all the time I wasted not knowing that, and I feel small. I'm looking at my text messages now. Yesterday, my pops told me he loved me. I'm 26, and he'll be 52 soon. And I think he's told me he loves me more in the last year or so than during the entire rest of my life. I can't help but think of what we missed. I wish I had that time back. I wish I knew my worth a long time ago. But here I am. With love, Mychal Denzel Smith. Dear Mychal, I cannot help but think that this performance called living is the most radical act that we black men can commit ourselves to. Unlike you, I did not, and still do not, spend a lot of time in therapy. Even though I graduated with a master's degree in clinical counseling, and even though I knew, the first time that I tried to end my life, that I needed help more than the helping profession needed me. But like you, I spent a lot of time in bed during my early 20s. Dreams, when I could actually sleep, were a welcome escape from life. Staying awake, staying alive, meant that I needed to figure out how the hell I would persuade other folks in my life that I was straight, and therefore acceptable and honorable as a black man. Fuck trying to live for my father, who didn't know that I wanted to die, who didn't know what undergrad institution I was in at the time, who didn't really know me, probably because he too was most likely trying just as hard as me to live. Nah, I was too worried about living for the Father, that other God, who apparently hated me enough to let me burn eternally in hell because I preferred to love other men. Ain't that torture? But my black mama knew best. She told me that I should not keep anyone in my life who refused to love me. Yet, if I were to adhere to my mom's advice, I would have had to drop out of school years ago, since a lot of folks in our inequitable education system refused to love us, quit engaging public health offices, because I walked in as a human in need of medical services and walked out as a patient whose subjective world was made invisible by research lingo. MSM, otherwise known as men who have sex with men, sleep in my bed all damn day, knowing it is more likely that I would be stopped by police when walking to the store in Camden or Bed-Stuy while rocking a fitted cap and carrying books than my white male neighbors would be while walking around in ski masks in the middle of summer and dropping a dime bag on the ground in front of a walking police and his dog. See, this thing we call living is as revolutionary as black gay Joseph Beam's call for black men to love other black men. Precisely because it is a command for us to counteract the very process of annihilation that structural racism and patriarchy have taught us to love and replicate. We are experts in the art of killing because we know what it is like to be killed, maligned, have our spirits deadened, our bodies pillaged. We know. But we cannot demonstrate our knowledge by re-articulating the very violences that have been used to murder us. I am a black man, and I am still alive. And yes, I am a revolutionary, because I daily choose to live. But I am a black man whose black mama's body and spirit were terrorized by another black man's hands and words. Sexism and patriarchy are not part of the revolution. I am a gender-maneuvering gay black man whose spirit was terrorized by other straight black men. Heterosexism and heteronormativity are not part of our revolution. I am a black man who has ignored the plights of so many of my brothers. Separation because of difference and elitism based on class is not a part of the revolution. Indeed, my living is your living, is your father's living, is my father's living, is my mother's living, is the stranger's living, and it is the revolution. If God needs to condemn anything to hell, it ought to be the idea of social death. Every day we commit an act of revolution, an act of treason, against a system that was never meant to guarantee our survival. More love, Darnell Moore. Dear Darnell and Mychal, your letter to Mychal took me back to a Baldwin essay. In Alas, Poor Richard, an essay that I still find a bit too brutalizing of Richard Wright, Baldwin wrote, "Negroes know about each other what can here be called family secrets, and this means that one Negro, if he wishes, can knock the other's hustle, can give his game away." Long before I read the Baldwin essay, and long before I remembered Tupac Shakur, Nasir Jones, and Dwayne Carter giving lessons on how our love for brothers and riches was always more important than our love for black women, I understood the gendered expectation of that hustle Baldwin writes about. No matter what another black man I cared for did to a woman or a group of women in his male partner, I was never to call him out or tell other people about his game. I want to change. The black man with whom I spent most of my life was not my father. This black man had an aneurysm 2 weeks ago. Bad books would call this black man a father figure. Like both of you, I try not to write bad books. This black man never told me he loved me. He never called me his son. He never told me I could be better. And, truth be told, I never wanted or needed him to do any of that shit. I liked him, and I think he liked me. That was enough. Femophobic diatribes and other bad books have gassed us with this idea that black boys need the presence of black father figures in our lives. I'm sure I'm not the only black boy who realized a long time ago that my mother and her mother's mother needed loving, generous partners far more than I needed a present father. Mama disciplined me. She loved me. Aunt Sue prayed for me. She loved me. Grandma worked for me. She loved me. That's why I made it through the late 80s and 90s. That is why I am alive. Black children need waves of present, multifaceted love, not simply present fathers. Anyway, I believe this black man loved how my mother made him feel, until he didn't. He loved her mind, until he didn't. He loved her persistence, until he didn't. I know my mother loved him, and loved what he tried to teach me. This black man tried to teach me that white folks were never to be emulated, that black life came from black farmers, and that a love of black people necessitated a love of the land we toiled, picked, and raked. This black man tried to teach me to own myself, Darnell, to never work for a white man. I learned later that owning myself was very different and, really, a lot easier than loving myself. This black man physically and emotionally brutalized my mother. I fought him for that, but I never told anyone. My mother broke up fights between us. I wiped her tears, put an ice on her swollen eyes and split lips, and never, ever talked about what this man did to her. This black man was respected in our community, and I could have knocked his hustle by telling the truth to him, to my mother, or to anyone who knew us. But I never did. I knew not to. I knew that telling was not only spreading my mama's business, it was also a form of knocking this black man's hustle. And that, I believed, was not how one black man should love another. Darnell, your letter really made me think about how not knocking another brother's hustle was seen as black men loving black men. Your letter reminds me that any love that necessitates deception is not love. It doesn't matter if that supposed love is institutional or personal. Your letter reminds me that when you don't let love breathe, you can't be surprised when you and those around you suffocate. We black men have suffocated our partners and ourselves for a long, long time. We black men have been suffocating for a long, long time. And I'd like it to stop. I want to work on loving you and Mychal and Kai and Marlon. I want all of you to work on loving me. Please knock my hustle, Darnell. Please remain my friend when I knock yours. Please love me, brother, and encourage me to be a healthy part of healthy relationships, no matter what. There is no proof that most of this nation has ever really wanted us to live with dignity and equal access to healthy choices. So we have to take better care of ourselves. We have to change. I am regretful and ready to love. I need your help. Kiese Laymon. Dear Kiese, Darnell, and Mychal, I thank you. I thank you for being vulnerable. I thank you for going deep and being unafraid to share that with me. All of these letters made me ask myself a question that I ponder a lot. What do we do with the scars, those of us who did not die, but still aren't free? We struggle. We fight. We make a way out of no way. Every day we prove that the impossible is possible just by living. You were right, Mychal. Trading worry for living, for being, is freedom. It's about being present. You were right, Darnell. Loving ourselves is a revolutionary act. We have to practice because the preachers and their Bibles don't always tell us so. You are right, Kiese. Love can't be attained through ownership. Love is a relationship that must be cultivated through honesty. The truth can hurt, but a lie will never set you free. I, like you, choose truth. Please love me enough to tell the truth. Can we heal ourselves? Yes, and we are modeling that process here. It takes self-reflection. These days when I look in the mirror, I see change. I see my hips narrowing. I see my jawline sharpening. I see the physical markers of my black manhood etch a divine design upon my body. And I feel pretty. But I wasn't born this way. I was born a black girl, and I grew up into a black woman. I was once a queer hippie kid searching for peace in a New England boarding school because home could no longer love me. I was once a masculine, identified lesbian, a femme-loving stud who was afraid to love other masculine folk. I was never told it was okay for us to love one another and that our love was valuable too. And today I write this as a black trans man, queer boy, lover of love. I chose this life. But what do we do with the scars? I have scars. Visible scars from falling as a kid. Visible scars from nights of self-inflicted cutting in high school. Visible scars from my recent double mastectomy. Those scars are easier for me to deal with because I know where to find them. I know what might irritate the recent scars on my chest. But what are the scars that you can't see? You ever go so deep and remember the things you didn't know you were reminding yourself to forget? Sadness. It haunts me. It sits on me sometimes and I wish I could move it, transition it. I only recently learned that the sadness I carry is not just my own. It was inherited. Both my mother and father struggle with depression, but no one ever told me. I thought I was alone, and we still struggle to talk about it, how things from way back when still hurt us, and how we never got to take a break after losing so much. Once I asked my mother about crack. I asked her about my dad. I asked her how she loved him. I asked her why she made me love him even though he hurt us over and over. She told me she felt shame. She told me that I was the only one she could talk to because everyone thought she was crazy to stay. But she loved him. That he was her husband and my father, and she knew his heart. Crack changed him. Crack destroyed so many black love stories. She told me that it was only in the last couple of years that she had stopped sleeping with her purse under her pillow for fear of having it stolen. She hasn't been with my dad in more than 6 years. Scars. If you cared about it, you had better lock it up in the back room. I remember the frustration of forgetting that nothing was safe unless you locked it away. I remember when something of my big brother's got stolen. I remember how angry he was. I remember how guilty I felt because it was my father who was the addict, not my big brother's father. I remember God. God and my mother were the only people I was allowed to talk to. We kept secrets from the outside world. We built our own, but we needed more. We couldn't save my dad. I couldn't save my mother. I learned the most radical thing I could do was figure out how to save myself. We all have to save ourselves. We all have to find our way toward healing and forgiveness. And it is a long road. I am a black trans man who loves men and women. I am a man who is just now learning to love my femininity. I was a girl named Kiana once. She survived the summer of sexual abuse when she was 8. When she told the truth, there was no counseling. There was no processing. Only a fast girl who needed to be watched closely. I prayed to God for forgiveness. Guilt hurt, and I started getting migraines. I moved with guilt in my heart, guilt as my center. I didn't want to be bad, but I felt bad. I carried guilt when I left my mother with my father, but it was the only way I could get free. I had to leave. I am Kai. I had to leave. I had to move into this new body. Sometimes we don't get what we deserve because we don't know our own value. We deserve great love, laughter, poetry, sweetness, sunshine, and smiles. We deserve true love, open and honest. We deserve healthy love. Love, a home where you don't have to hide what is most valuable in order to keep it. I write with love for you, brothers, the agape kind. Kai M. Green. Dear Kai, Kiese, Darnell, and Mychal. Damn, you guys are bringing up some things that are making me go deep within. Just 2 months ago, I was finally able to voluntarily move out of my parents' house. FYI, I said voluntarily because I spent a decade in what some of my brothers called Mr. Gilmore's house, aka the big house. I've been in prison for the last 10 years of my life. I'm black and from Brooklyn, so my spending time in Mr. Gilmore's house ain't no thing nowadays. Y'all know the stats about black men in prisons, so I will spare the choir to the gospel. But, man, that ain't the half of it all. I got people telling me that I need to see a quack because they think I'm emotionless. Gotta admit, I think I am too. I mean, I care about a whole lot of people and things and issues. In fact, my whole life is dedicated to caring. That's why I do the work I do. Mentoring and nurturing the hood to be safer and so on. But, brothers, I'm numb when it comes to deep feelings. I don't quite know when it happened, but I might be messed up in the head. At least by therapist copay standards. It's late and I don't feel like giving you all the whole book of my life right now, but I will give you a little context as to how I became as emotionless as I am. This is going to be confessions on speed, so keep up. Ready? Last of 3 kids. Older brother, good. No, great parents. Older brother hated the crap out of me. No clue why. Well, I have some ideas. Nerdy kid. Jumped badly at 14. almost raped at gunpoint at 14 by some random bitch-ass mofo, had my first nut at the time, lost my virginity at 18, shot at 18, doctor said I'd never walk the same again, proved him wrong, arrested for first-degree murder at 20, though I never killed anyone, sentenced to a dozen plus 5 at 22, released at 30, doing great things for myself and others since then. LOL. Maybe I need some therapy. I don't know. What I do know is that I meet great women who want to love me, who I want to love back, at least in my mind. But I have a hard time replacing that want in my heart. So y'all are talking about loving, and I'm talking about loving. I love myself and others to the bitter end, and I'm proud of myself for surviving so much unscathed. I'm the easiest person to get along with, or disagree with. I write well, that's what folks tell me. I speak well, that's what folks tell me. I inspire others, that's what folks tell me. Don't get me wrong, I believe all of that stuff, and I thank God for it. I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, BTW, though I'm not really an active JW right now because I drink and screw and all that good stuff, though I don't cuss on the regular. But all this surviving and experience is so effing much at times. You know, my pops once told me that you shouldn't suffocate the spirit, meaning you shouldn't hold in how you feel for someone. Oh, did you expect me to give some sort of anecdotal moral to that quote? Like you're taught to in English class? Like, you shouldn't leave a paragraph without finishing your point? Nah, I ain't got the answer, homies. I guess that's what I'll leave for you all to finish. You know, keep the flow going. Bless. Marlon Peterson. That is the end of Echo, Mychal, Darnell, Kiese, Kai, and Marlon, written by Kiese Laymon from his collection How to Slowly Kill Yourself and Others in America. This is read by me, Jordan Barclay, just doing it because Black Lives Matter. If you enjoyed the production of this audiobook, feel free to give it a like. I'd really appreciate it. If you have any requests on what audiobooks by Black authors I should read now, comment below and I'll try my best to get to it as soon as possible. And if you want to be updated on this, feel free to share this around and subscribe and ring the bell of notifications. I'd greatly appreciate all that. Well, this was an amazing short story. I'll see you with another one very soon. Until then, I'm out. Take care, guys. Black Lives Matter.